System of a Down's classic Rick Rubin-produced album, Toxicity, turns 20 this year. Released in 2001, 1 week before 9/11, the politically charged and wildly bizarre nature of Toxicity provided the perfect soundtrack for a world descending into chaos. Serj Tankian, the lead singer of System, is no stranger to conflict. His family's Armenian and migrated to LA from Lebanon to escape a civil war when Serj was 7 years old. In Los Angeles, he grew up in a tight-knit Armenian community along with the rest of his younger System bandmates. As Serj's star began to rise in the late 90s, his activism intensified. And to this day, he continues to raise awareness around the Armenian genocide and the impact of corporate greed. Last month, he released the documentary Truth to Power, which documents the intersection of Serj's work as a musician and an activist. Today we'll hear Rick Rubin talk to his good friend Serj about how hearing bombs drop outside his childhood bedroom turned him into a lifelong activist. Serj also explains how a pretty odd and funny line about a tapeworm almost caused System of a Down to break up. And why the first time Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine heard System play, he called it music for crazy people. This is Broken Record, liner notes for the digital age. I'm Justin Richmond. Here's Rick Rubin and Serj Tankian.
Maybe we start by talking about the movie. How did the movie come about?
So the idea originally was in 2011. 2011 is the year that System of a Down started touring again after years of hiatus. And I knew I was going to have an incredibly busy professional year. I was touring with System of a Down, touring with my backup band, the FCC, doing orchestral shows with different orchestras around the world, going to Armenia, protest movements, like doing all this crazy. That year I knew was going to be insane in terms of work. So I thought, you know what, I should put on a camera on my head like a GoPro and spy glasses and have someone following me the whole time and let's record everything. And I did. But I realized watching the footage after a while that, the idea of a POV film of an artist looking behind the scenes is interesting if the artist can keep their head still. But my head was like a bird, like it was impossible to watch. And what is the meaning of all these experiences anyway? There was no narrative, no written theme or script or anything like that. So a friend of mine and I were discussing this, and I had the drives of all the footage. And he's like, "What are we really trying to say? What's the story you want to tell?" And after discussing, System of a Down, music, art, and all of this, it turned out, to me, the most interesting story was that of the activist in me, and how before music and before the success of the band, no small thanks to you, I had a smaller voice. And then with the success of the band, my voice became more pronounced. And that had its ramifications as well as the fruits of that labor in terms of seeing things come into fruition.
When did you first feel the desire to participate in the culture in this way as an activist?
I was a teenager, Rick, and my grandfather, all my grandparents were survivors of the Armenian Genocide, and their stories were very powerful, how they saw their family perish and how they survived. And yet the US government hadn't formally recognized the Armenian Genocide. And for me, it was like, why are we living with this hypocrisy in a democracy where the government hasn't properly recognized the truth of history of what's happened to my people? And to me, that instantly made me an activist, because I realized that there are so many other truths out there that are being denied for political expediency, economic purposes, or for whatever reason. That's when it was. So I was an activist before becoming an artist.
Yeah, it's an interesting way in. And the point you make about so much of what we're told is not true. It's like there's always a narrative that's, for our whole lives, we've been presented these series of narratives, and the history books that we were given as kids, probably, 90% of what's in them is not really true. It's a crazy revelation to have.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you took that information and wanted to do something about it. I almost have the opposite feeling. It's like, I don't want to do anything. Like I accept that we're not being told what's going on.
That's very interesting. And I have that feeling too sometimes, Rick, because you get overwhelmed, on that end. And when you do, you're just like, I just want a musical project to jump into so I can lose myself in it and not think about all these worldly things. So I could just be an artist and be free again. And then I can gain that battery energy and love energy and then come back and fight the good fight.
Beautiful. It's interesting because also I feel like the fact that you're taking action, there is some belief in you that you can change something, and that's awesome.
Thanks, brother. But you've changed a lot of things yourself,
In different ways, though, and not on purpose. It has never happened through wanting to change anything. It's always happened just through wanting to make something good, and then something changes in reaction to it. But it's never been the goal to change anything, I don't think.
But isn't that what it is? Like your vision, whatever that vision is, and you following it properly, and you're being in tune with it, which I know you've always been, at least as far as I've known you, makes that change. Whether it's music or having artists that you work with feeling incredibly comfortable to create the best of what they create. I mean, it's a very unique gift that that I'm grateful that you've shared with us.
Yeah, cool, man. Let's talk about music a little bit. First experience of music in your life. What do you remember?
First experience of music in my life would be my dad singing in the house. My dad had a wonderful, beautiful voice, still does, and loved singing, musician, but not professionally. And because his dad died when he was really young, and he didn't think he could make a living doing music. And so he became a designer, shoe designer, and studied in Milan and got into that business. But he would sing at home a lot. And in fact, the song that we show in the film that I sing with my dad, the song about the stork, is a song that could be the first song I ever heard when I was really young, and him singing it. And I would try to harmonize with him and sing with him. So I think that's the first musical memory that I have as a kid.
Did your family speak Armenian in the house or English?
Predominantly Armenian.
Interesting. So would you say Armenian would be your first language, sort of?
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. I never knew that.
Yeah. So I was born in Lebanon, and I was 7 when we came over during the Lebanese Civil War, and still spoke Armenian, went to a private Armenian school here in Hollywood. I knew a little English when I was a kid, but I learned it mostly in Los Angeles. And it's funny because when you're bilingual or multilingual, I think you always think in your first language, and that can change over time. So now when I speak Armenian, I'm actually thinking in English and speaking in Armenian,
Wow.
whereas before I used to think in Armenian and speak in English when I was younger.
Really interesting. It also makes sense for some of your lyrical choices have always been, while it's always poetic, sometimes the choice of the order of some of the words is like, it's unusual. And I'm wondering if that comes from it being a second language.
Very likely. Yeah. That reminds me, I remember Peephole, because when we were doing our first record, you were talking to me about certain lyrical stanzas, and don't ever get stuck in the sky. And you told me, well, whatever you're on, whether it's pot or whatever, aren't you supposed to be in the sky? Like you were like going, yeah, but I'm like, yeah, but the way I see it is don't ever get stuck in the sky because it's too good, like that kind of a thing. And so, yeah, I know what you're saying. It's a kind of different way of seeing things. It's a different perspective, I guess.
Interesting. So cool. So cool. It's fascinating because we know each other so well.
I know.
And to talk about this stuff, just really interesting.
It is.
Do you remember your first experience of Western music, of like popular music?
I don't remember what's the first popular or Western music, but I do remember the first records that I ever bought, and I was probably 7 or 8 years old. Columbia House had the club where you could join and you get like 5 or 6 vinyls for free, and then you had to buy 1 a year or 2 a year. I forgot what it was. And I remember being really excited about it and getting those first 5 records. I want to say, it was probably 76 or 77, right? So Rick James was in there, which was
awesome
at the time. Barbra Streisand and Barry Gibb, Guilty. Like, I think I bought 7, 8 records that first year. What else was in there? Not a lot of rock. maybe Chuck Mangione or something like that, trumpet
great.
player, just different things, whatever as a kid that I had heard from my uncle or someone play. My uncle really loved Stevie Wonder. He would play Stevie Wonder when we were living with them when we first came to the States, and a lot of soul. I remember a lot of soul from the 70s and disco, obviously.
Yeah. Do you remember living in Lebanon as a kid?
I have specific visual memories, almost like snapshots, because I was young.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember my grandparents' house, where that was, our house, and our little backyard where we used to play. I remember my school, our school that we went to, and a couple of other, like the beach and a couple of sceneries. And then I remember the war. And what I remember about the war is, and the war had just started, I remember ducking in our bedroom with my brother because of the bombs falling and school was closed. And that really made a huge impression on me as a child, which translated into my activism as an adult. Because, when we were making that song Boom and Michael Moore directed the video, if you remember, I still can't get the feeling out that dropping bombs is literally on the other side of hearing those bombs drop. It's a terrorizing feeling, hearing bombs drop. They feel random and they terrorize the population. And if you've ever been in that situation of hearing bombs drop, you'd be very reluctant to order your own government or anyone to do that to anyone else.
How quickly were you able to leave when that started, your family?
We were lucky. My dad was already planning on us migrating to the US and had done paperwork ahead of time. So we didn't know, obviously, before the war started. And so we were lucky. We got out pretty early.
How long does that process take typically?
I wouldn't know. Years, I would assume, because he had a brother my uncle lived in New York, and so I think he came, visited him, started our paperwork in terms of immigration, and then the war broke out. It became more difficult, and my dad had to come 6 months after us. We had to come here with our mom, and my dad followed us 6 months after.
Was it only Armenians that were targeted?
Oh, no. I mean, Armenians weren't specifically targeted. It was a whole civil war between, there were the Christian Phalange movement, there were the Shiite movement, and there were the Sunnis, and it was just complete sectarian war, each supported by different proxy nations from outside. And it was a mess. And it's still a mess now after that huge bomb that went off last year. And I have a friend there, and the banking system is all frozen up. I mean, people with money can't even get, they can only get $1,000 a month out of their bank account, even if they have a lot of money. I mean, there's a lot of, COVID's bad. And, from what I hear, I've only been to Lebanon once since we left as a kid in 2011, the year that I decided to shoot everything that I was, experiencing. And I took my parents back, and they were older when they moved. My brother and I were like 4 and 7, but they were in their 30s when they moved. So for them, it was a very prolific kind of, experience going back.
How, I don't know whether the word is tight or cohesive, was the Armenian experience in Los Angeles?
There are a lot of Armenians in Los Angeles, probably the second largest diasporan community outside of Armenia. Russia would probably be the first, but it's quite close. Those are the two largest communities. And that's very interesting geopolitically for me, because you've got, a lot of Armenians in the Russian sphere, and then you've got a lot of Armenians here on polar opposite sides of the political spectrum, between those two nations. But the community, it got bigger over the years. When I came, there were a number of Armenians. It wasn't as big as there is now, like Glendale or Hollywood. But it was nice, having especially when you're just learning the language, it's nice having people from your culture around to kind of guide you and especially as a kid. But at the same time, we were in mainstream, American culture and growing up in Los Angeles with all that. I remember we lived in Hollywood in the mid 70s, right? And we used to walk to school in Hollywood. Colorful Hollywood, pimps and hookers and all this stuff happening. And my parents, they didn't even, wonder whether we were safe or not. They're like, yeah, grab your brother's hand and walk to school. I was like 7, 8. He was like 5. And now I'm thinking, I would never let my kid walk up the street in Hollywood, or whatever. But like at the time, it was it was more laxed, I guess. And maybe the violence wasn't as pronounced as it is now.
Yeah. Does California feel like home? Like if you think of home.
California, look, majority of my friends and family are in Los Angeles. So, I feel comfortable here, but it does feel more like an office than a home to me. I remember hearing you talk to Pharrell on the show. I'm a fan of the, Broken Record podcast, and I've been listening to it for a while. And that really hit home for me because I feel more at home in New Zealand. Lived there part of the year, got residency years ago. Have a nice place there that I'm thankful for. And here I feel like it's more, I do have a lot of friends and family, but it feels more of a rat race.
It is.
Would
you say that politics were part of System of a Down from the beginning?
I guess so. I mean, a band is, a good band, I think, that creates interesting music is always going to be a push and pull of different personalities and different agendas. I think when you have everyone on one page doing one thing, that's cool because that makes things simpler. But I think the music is not as interesting. And our band is like that. We're four distinct personalities with distinct ways of doing things. And the political was more my thing because I was an activist before becoming an artist. And luckily I had these guys in my band that would kind of make me go, okay, you're going too far. And that's good.
Agreed.
Because, unless the whole thing's got to be political, like Rage, which is awesome because that's what they agreed upon. And I think that's amazing. But System was never just political, as you well know. But it was always there, and it's not just me, to be honest. Specifically Darren, I think, also has a lot of ideas, more social than necessarily political, but also challenging the social fabric of society, some of the hypocrisies that are, So I think it was definitely in our DNA as a band from the beginning.
What was the scene that System was born into? Like, what was going on in LA at the time that you guys started?
When we started, radio wasn't playing our kind of music, definitely. We kind of were in this warehouse in North Hollywood doing our own thing, not knowing what was going on in the musical world outside of us. It was very incubated in that sense. And when we first started playing on the scene, like the Roxy and Whiskey, we were primarily opening up for, anything from an industrial band to other heavy bands out of Los Angeles or Santa Barbara. We had this band Snot that we used to play around town with a lot. And, they were very much hardcore / punk kind of band. And we gravitated because we have definitely a lot of punk ethos to our metal-y type of rock music. And it kind of really fit. But we didn't know what scene we were a part of until later. We were like, oh, there's Korn and Deftones. There's this new metal scene coming out of Los Angeles. And then lucky for us, as we started working together, radio switched formats, like literally at that time. I always say as hard as you work and as creative as you can try to be, there's definitely a little matter of luck as well to kind of land in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely.
And so that's what was going on. K-Rock wasn't playing our type of music when we started. They switched right when we were about to get that second record out.
Not only was K-Rock not playing your sort of music, after they switched and after they were playing hard music, the program director said, when hearing System of a Down, this is a band that we will never play on our station ever.
Right, I remember that.
When the first album came out.
Yeah.
That we will never play this band. And then 1 year later, System was the number one requested band on the station.
Isn't that amazing? And look, again, I'm not on your show to do wax poetic on you, but honestly, if it wasn't for your support in those first years of being out there with no radio support and touring, opening for Slayer, one of your bands, it was amazing. Like just building that, foundation for a band, going on tour, playing Europe, getting shit thrown at from the Slayer crowd and learning how to handle an audience and boot camp, proper boot camp as artists on the road. And that really built us so that when the second record came and radio did switch formats, we were ready and we actually had a base. So it wasn't some radio band you're introducing into, the community. Instead you had this a plethora of fans wanting to hear the music, and that really kicked in properly.
Yeah, and it really all happened naturally. We can't say any of that was actually planned. The only plan was to make something really good and stick to it. Like make something great, and whoever was interested in this great thing we made, we wanted them to find out about it. I don't think there was ever the idea of converting people who don't like it to like it. I remember our friend Tom Morello, the first time I played it for him, he's like, this is crazy person's music. This is music for crazy people. It's like, it was just so on the fringe at the time. And still, I feel like it holds up in how extreme and ridiculous it is. But we get more used to it because it's gotten popular. If you took away the popularity, it's really crazy. It is. It really is.
Tom said he was with you that first day you saw us at the Viper Room. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Tom was with us.
I didn't remember that. And when I was talking to him recently, he was like, "Oh yeah, I was there." And I told Rick, "This is nuts. This is crazy."
But it was really fun, and I just, as I've told you before, I just remember laughing the whole show.
You were laughing. I remember seeing you sitting on one of those booths, up on top of the booth, because there were so many heads in the audience, and Viper Room's a tiny place. Yeah. And I just remember seeing you laughing, and it's a positive encouragement that, it's like, that's cool.
It was super, it was a positive, it's a funny thing doing, kind of screaming, somewhat questionable lyrics, and how that can be interpreted as this positive, like, unity experience. And it was, it really was. It felt like there was great solidarity in the audience. Right. People were getting what they needed at that show, and the band was just great.
No, that was fun. I remember talking to you after we went outside, and we were so enthused that you were there, bro. Like, so excited. If you look at System of a Down, it's an established band now and whatnot, but like you said, it was this crazy man's music just going off and these weird lyrics. I might have even had a distortion pedal feeding back on stage, which is like, who the fuck wants to sign that, right? Like, and here you were checking us out. And I remember, Guy, Siri, and Bino were friends.
Yeah.
So Guy had called saying, Rick's coming, but we're running late or something. And we're like, we gotta delay the show. Like, we gotta wait for it to come.
Were you guys wearing paint?
I don't remember. Were we?
I can't remember either. It's all a blur. But I mean, I've seen you guys wear paint. When did that start? The paint.
That's a good question. It was early on, obviously, and it was very much. Darren and Chavo were huge Kiss fans, and they were really into the whole makeup and craziness and colorfulness of that. And so that was their influence completely. And it was pretty early on. I don't know if it was from the first show or not. I mean, first, run of shows on the Strip or not.
It felt more tribal than it did like Kiss, like what I saw.
Mine was tribal.
Yeah. But I remember also like the what looked like Armenian folk dancing while playing these essentially heavy metal songs.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. I mean, that's kind of the sound of System of a Down. That it brings our kind of filtered Armenian experience into heavy music in a way that doesn't copy either, and just kind of becomes its own thing. That includes rhythms, that includes weird solos and whatnot.
And harmonies. I feel like the harmonies really feel like they're rooted in, they don't sound like the harmonies that you hear in any other hard music. It does feel like it's rooted in an ancient folk.
Yeah, a lot of thirds, like Greek and Armenian Mediterranean harmonies. Yeah, Darren and I, for sure. And our voice really match. Our ranges and our voice really match in a very unique way. And that was from day one. Before System, we used to have a band called Soil, which was a way more progressive and nutty, like just kind of...
How can it be way more progressive? What does that sound like?
Almost unlistenable. No, not unlistenable, but it was just, think of every System song, but being more just crazier. Like, not crazier, but how do I say it? Less pop format, right? In terms of the format, it was just go on and on. But it was a good learning experience. It was the first time I had ever sang in a band, and that was 8 months. The whole band was just around. We had one show where Darren fell off the stage, and he still... And he still does that. So, it was interesting, but that was good experience because I didn't know what I was doing as a vocalist. I mean, for me, it was always trying to make a sound with my voice. To me, singing was two different, separate things. Trying to get the words in there. And sometimes there were a lot of words and I had to get them in there because as someone who wrote poetry, it was important to get the words in there. So I wasn't thinking, does this sound right to someone singing? I was more like, I got to get these words in there. It doesn't matter how fast I go with the da, right? And two, to try to make sounds with the voice, like it's a guitar or a synth or something like that. Very Dadaesque kind of interpretation. And also create relationships between things that don't have a pre-existing relationship with each other, whether it's musical parts going from one part to another, or lyrical words that don't belong together. Terracotta pie, banana terracotta pie. What the fuck is that, right? We still don't know what that is.
But talk about banana terracotta pie. You had to get the words in. Tell me, how did you decide those are the words you had to get in?
I don't remember. I remember writing the song on acoustic guitar and just kind of playing it fast and just trying to, I was trying to sing whatever I was playing. And I was just like banana, but it would turn out to be banana, terracotta, terracotta pie. And I remember your first reaction when we were working on that song, on the demos of that song. You're just like, what is that? Like, it wasn't a compliment. You were just like, I don't know what this is. Like, but once we were done with it, you were like, this is really good. We have to keep it. This is really, and I found that to be interesting because it's challenging. Some of it is challenging, I think,
All of it. I mean, I feel like I learned so much about music working with you guys because it was so far out and broke so many accepted rules. And the mission was, okay, taking into account it's going to break these rules, how do we still achieve what's something that we could listen to and have this, like, I don't want to call it accessibility because it's not. It's by nature, it's not understandable. So how can we present it where it's the most understandable while retaining that it can never be understood?
That was like a quantum theory formula right there.
It was. That was our work.
Yeah, that was our work. But I also learned a lot from you. I still, to this day, bro, when I do vocals, I hear you in my head going, pronounce it better. Pronounce it better. It's like, don't chew those words. Pronounce it better. I mean, there's times where you want to throw away words, but a lot in terms of how you hear things. And I love how you basically eat music and then interpret it from almost a fan's perspective as a producer. Really get into it and love it. And then know what the best thing about it is. Kind of you narrow it down to that one strong foundation, and then you want to hear that more. Or you give ideas where that's more pronounced. And I think that's really special.
Yeah, I definitely am into the idea of like putting a focus on the thing that speaks the most. And because it can get lost. So the job is to like think about where the spotlight is shining while all these things are going on at the same time. How do we keep this one aspect in focus when we need to, and then and when to switch the focus to this other thing to focus on, and giving everything its turn. Talk about the vocal phrasing in the verses of Chop Suey.
Wake up, grab, just kind of going with that neurotic kind of, attacky music and it's the pauses that make it interesting. And it's hard to do live because I literally have to listen to John so I could be syncopated with him. And he looks at my body motion. So I try to go left and right. So he knows, like, it's kind of like we have to be on the same page. I don't know how that came about. It's probably my naivete going, I don't know what to do here, so I'm going to do exactly what the guitars are doing.
But how did you, and I remember us talking about it, and I didn't understand it at the time, about you doing like the responses also.
Yeah, the whispered responses.
Yes.
Which sounds so creepy. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't remember. It's been quite a number of years, couple of decades, right? But hey, congratulations, because Toxicity, or I want to say, was it Chop Suey? I think Chop Suey was voted by Metal Hammer Best Metal Song of the 20th Century.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
Big accolade.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I never studied singing. I had no idea what I was doing. So for me, it was a sound. And if the guitars can do it, then my voice can do it, So I was trying to match that, which is irregular. I mean, someone who's learned how to sing is never going to do that, knowing they can't properly repeat it every day, every night, which is a pain in the butt, right? But I think that's what's beautiful about art and about exploration, about not being walking into something and just being creative, not having previous experiences of it. Because I think that exploratory nature can really lead to something new. It's the reason I started painting a number of years ago, because, again, I didn't know what I was doing. I got into it, and I feel that same kind of feeling of lost and losing time and just doing something without knowing what the results are going to be, and that kind of what I felt when I first started doing music.
Amazing. I want to talk a little more about lyrics, just because it's such a interesting part of what you do. I love the way you sing, but the lyrics are this whole other thing. It's like, it's radical. Do you remember the drama over the Tapeworm song?
Yes. How can I forget that? Okay, so originally the song, the chorus was "Pull the tapeworm out of my ass," right?
As I recall, yes.
Darren and Chavo didn't like my ass, right? They were like, no, that doesn't sound cool. That sounds bad. That sounds vulnerable, or whatever it was, whatever word you want to use as an adjective. And I'm like, what I'm trying to say is philosophical, like, take this negativity out of me, or whatever at the time I was trying to portray. And they're like, no, that's not cool. We don't want to be in a band where it's your,
I felt like it seemed like the band could have broke up over the lyric. Like, it was so extreme.
Yeah.
But it speaks to the passion in the band. Like, there's real passion. It's amazing. I mean, the fact that a lyric, an insignificant one word and arguably comical line
totally
is enough to potentially break up a band or discard a great song. There was another possibility. It's like, well, right, that song just goes away.
And all we had to do is change it to your. Yes. Pull the tapeworm out of your ass. My became your. Yeah. And then in the middle part where I'm singing nicely, pull the tapeworm out of me, they were okay with that.
Yeah. And it's really beautiful when you get to that. It's like you're part of you become part of the community. It's like it goes from this...
The ass tapeworm community?
Yeah. It's like you. And then it's like, and me.
Right. Well, I'm curious from your point of view, since you were there and you saw that, like, what was your reaction? You probably thought, these guys are fucking nuts. It's like, number one, it's one word. And why are they arguing over this?
It wasn't obvious that it was one word. That was like when that got decoded.
Right.
When we realized it wasn't pull the tapeworm ass problem. When we realized it was pull the tapeworm out of my ass problem.
My ass, yeah.
And that when you said my ass, it represented everybody in the band's ass. and everybody wasn't comfortable with that. And now, you could essentially be saying, pull the tapeworm out of your ass to the rest of the band.
Right.
And they're okay with it. It's fascinating.
I don't think you've done any broken record podcasts and used the word ass in so many minutes at all. We broke a record today. But yeah, that's funny. I mean, with all of the, like, prison song, with like all that stuff that's written in very kind of essay form, and we didn't have any arguments about that. But that one tape word, it's...
And it's funny. The other thing about it is that it's clearly funny.
We were all pissed off and you were laughing the whole time. So yeah, it was funny.
Yes, it does have like a bigger meaning. I understand, but they weren't upset with the bigger meaning. It was purely the language, and it was a very funny line.
It's kind of funny because I think it's the metal attitude versus the non-metal attitude as well. Yeah. So for me, I like showing vulnerability in our music, in whatever I do. I don't mind showing it because I think as an artist, you're vulnerable either way. You either show it or you don't.
Yeah.
You know? But the metal attitude is no way, dude. Like, no way. We're metal, right? You can't show vulnerability, that kind of a thing. I think that's what it was more than anything else.
I feel like there's a way in the future to lean into exactly what you're saying and the fact that there's that difference. And when I think of the example, you talk about Prison Song and the way the chorus works, pushing little children with their fully automatics, semi-automatics?
That's not the Prison Song. The Prison Song is they tried to build a prison. They're going to build a prison.
Okay, I'm confused.
Yeah. Pushing little children is...
I never know titles, ever.
I forget them myself. Don't worry.
What are the lines? Pushing little children.
With their fully automatics, they like to push the weak around.
Right. So you're singing that from this place of compassion, or your compassion makes you angry.
Right.
And Darren's character joins in for push the weak around. And he's doing the authoritarian side of the story. And like you said earlier, the thing that makes a band great is those difference. It's not everybody unified on the same message. It's those different messages and how they bump up against each other to make something really interesting. I'd never thought of it this way before until we were having this conversation. But it's an interesting
dichotomy. The reason you said Prison Song is that same thing exists in there because Darren comes in with, what was it? I buy my crack, I smack my bitch right here in Hollywood, which is playing into the negativity.
Yes.
Where the lyrics are talking about the injustice of the, 3-strike law, the prison system, the racist policies that endure. And he comes in as the guy. Like,
yes,
he does
playing the character. The foil.
Yeah. Blast off. It's party time. We don't live in a fascist nation, whatever. Like, it's a character kind of portrayal back and forth, which is interesting. I never even thought of it this way until you just brought it up right now.
Yeah, the same thing existed in Public Enemy, where Chuck D was always really serious, and Flavor Flav was the foil. And sometimes he was the comic foil, but sometimes it was just like a different point of view, like calm down, Chuck. Like sometimes it was just like another perspective.
Yeah.
And together it's like, I don't know that Public Enemy would have done what it did without the foil. It made it less finger shaking,
Totally.
And people don't like having finger shaked at them. Nobody. Even if they like what you're saying, they don't like that.
No, I think you either have to make them dance, you have to make them laugh. I've realized this, doing this for a few decades or so, is you have to entertain while you get that message out, because otherwise, you're just giving a speech, and that's not very exciting.
Yeah.
And it's not going to get very far. I say it in the movie. It's like in 2015, when we played Armenia for the first time, those words came out of me where I said what I needed to say politically on stage. And then I said, we're here to tell you the truth and rock you at the same time. And I think that's the magic.
Yeah. It's interesting also how you could lyrically have deadly serious lyrics right next to really zany, wacky lyrics and make it work.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's Dada-esque, very Zappa-esque, and, it is cool. I like that kind of, I think Darren does too. I think that's where we get along creatively, is finding relationships between things that don't have a common relationship. Like, wow, if we can make these two things work together, we've never heard that before. That's really interesting. Experiment and take it to the next level.
Let's talk about the 3 years between the first album and Toxicity, what that ride was like.
Touring. I remember the only radio we even had on the first record was Jed the Fish played Sugar on his specialty show, and I got to hear it in the car, and I was like, wow, dream come true. I heard our song on the radio kind of thing. But there was not a lot of radio on the first record, and it was a lot of touring. We were on tour with Slayer in Europe and then the US. And then we did a bunch of Ozfest shows and a bunch of other shows, small, shows, and just getting out there for people to really experience our music, opening for bands, and kind of doing the do. That's the foundation. And I remember those days. They were not easy because we're traveling in RVs that broke down. That in the middle of the night we had to climb fences and find a phone. There were no cell phones at the time, and there were a lot of tough times, but we remember them fondly because that was the beginning of this whole incredible experience. I remember at one point, we were in an RV and John would drive a lot because he was responsible. You didn't want Darren driving. Shavo would drive. He was good. But I remember Darren and I were sleeping on this RV bed, and I guess we were about to hit something, and John must have slammed on the brakes. And I remember Darren grabbing me. I was flying in the air, and he just grabbing me.
Wow.
There's just these incredible experiences that you can't forget. Funny ones, crazy ones.
Talk about Slayer's audience a little bit. What was Slayer's audience like?
Oh my God. So I know that Alice in Chains has opened for Slayer. All these bands have opened for Slayer, and their audiences hate everyone but Slayer, right? Everyone. It doesn't matter whether you're rock and that was the phase where we were like makeup. Darren had his little glam toys on him, and it was the worst thing you could do to Slayer fans. It was just like you were getting ready for them to kill you. I remember at one point we started a show with Sweet Pea, which is a heavy song but funny and funky. We got booed, and I remember Darren going, "Oh, you like that song? We're gonna play it again," and we played it again. It was like we were learning how to take the attitude and not to get upset and have fun with it. I remember playing in Poland, and we were being killed by these coins. They were throwing coins at us as we were performing because there was another band, the Polish death metal band, that played after us, and we were the direct support. Who are these fucking clowns to get a better position in before Slayer than, and of course we were on tour with Slayer the whole time. And so we were getting pelted. And at one point, and this is must have been 98, 99. So it wasn't far back that Poland was part of the Soviet Union. And there were swastikas. There was shit going on, right? Crazy shit. They were threatening us and all this stuff, pelting us. And at one point I got so angry, I told the lighting guy to turn the lights on the audience. I saw the guy that pelted me last, and I just started cussing at him and yelling at him with the lights on the audience. Rick, you could have heard a pin drop. Everyone went silent. It's the scariest thing I've ever seen on tour because I exercised authority.
Wow.
And authority was something that they had just gotten out of.
Yeah.
And when I exercised that authority from stage, they froze. And it scared the shit out of me. And I go, okay, I think we're done, guys. And we walked out just feeling really weird. Just interesting stuff that you learn playing in different countries with different cultures, you know. I've toured with different orchestras around the world, for example. No orchestra plays the same. Every orchestra plays based on their cultural idioms, based on how they see. Italians, for example, best soloists in the world. Together,
not so good.
It's just the culture. It's just the culture.
Yes.
Russians play boom. When the conductor does this, it's down, all at the same time. It's so interesting seeing cultures play the same piece of music completely differently.
How different are the audiences?
The audiences are quite diverse, both for System and my own solo stuff. The orchestral shows are interesting because you'll see older people and you'll see, people in a System of a Down t-shirt in their 20s and wanting to rock. It's this weird combination. And I think with System, there's a little more male demographic, I'd say, than female. But, it's quite interesting. But the age is quite, you see kids and dads going together to concerts. I love seeing that. I really, really love seeing that. Okay, so today's the first day I'm driving my son to our relative's house. And I decided, I'm like, have you listened to, death metal? And he's like, what's that? And I'm like, oh, good. So I played him Slayer for the first time today.
Wow.
I played him the band Death. And he really loved it. He was like, he just, and I'm like, it's just so interesting,
The energy. Yeah, there's just an energy.
Energy, yeah.
Can feel it.
And I ask, what do you like about this? Do you like the drums? Do you like the guitars? Like you said, I like both. I play him Tom Waits. I play him everything, obviously, because, it's like food. If they learn from a young age to eat everything, they won't want mac and cheese for the rest of their life.
It's interesting, before you talked about how the luck and the improbability of things that either work for you or against you. What are the odds that Toxicity came out the week of September 11th? Like, how is that possible? And to have the number one album in the country when that happened, it's just surreal.
It's incredibly surreal, with a song whose chorus was, trust in my self-righteous suicide, I cry when angels deserve to die. It's like completely surreal.
Yeah.
When people talk about the record, I remember our recording sessions and stuff, but the majority of my memories have to do with the stress of the release, because right before we released it, we held a free show in Hollywood, right behind the Roosevelt Hotel. You remember, we were expecting 4,000 people, and 20,000 people showed up, and it became, the fire marshal came down and said, you can't play the show. They closed the show. Police threatened to arrest us if we got on stage to play a song, because there were no specific entries. The barriers were incorrect or whatever. And it was so tenuous. It was so stressful. And I don't know if you know this, but I gathered the guys that day, and I'm like, let's get arrested. This will be perfect.
I didn't know this.
Let's go for it. And then our lawyer overheard and said, everyone here is going to sue you if you go up there and the fire marshal has closed it, whether they arrest you or not. Like, don't, he's like, don't. And it was just crazy. And then there was the riot. Like there was an LA riot before the release of Toxicity, because the show that we were supposed to play, we even said, like, let us go play one song and just announce we'll redo the show, because obviously there's too many people. This is not, they wouldn't let us. It was so myopic in retrospect. It was of LAPD and not allowing us to at least calm down the crowd.
Yeah, canceling the show made everybody go crazy.
They made everyone go crazy. They attacked our crew, and equipment went everywhere, and police came in with horses, and it's just a mess. And then watching all of that on the news, I'm feeling, even though we did all we could, but those were our fans. Those are people that wanted to hear our music. It was wrong, that happened. Anyway, so Toxicity's release started with that. Then, of course, September 11, on September 12, I posted an essay called Understanding Oil, which was my way of understanding how something like this could happen. And it spoke about 50 years of U.S. foreign policy, the need for multilateralism in terms of how we deal with this issue, not unilateralism like it was with going after Iraq, a country that had, for example, nothing to do with 9/11. But at the time, they were making these ties. And a lot of people felt that was wrong. And we had the protests before the Iraq war, the Michael Moore video. All I remember is this incredible stress. We were on, I had to defend myself on the Howard Stern show. Remember that?
Oh, I really remember. I remember calling Howard before, because Howard was ready to really attack.
Yeah.
And I called him and I said, these are good guys. And keep in mind, you're getting one side of a story. Their intentions are good. They mean good. It was a really like a positive call, and he's like, okay, I'll listen to what he says. But it really could have gone the other way, really could have.
Oh, we had calls, coming in, and death threats and all sorts of stuff with the band. I remember, and mind you, we're on tour the week after September 11 with all those additional, red and orange, like danger. There might be more terrorist attacks, and we're in front of 20,000 people a night, Scary, man. It was really, really scary and stressful. I remember the band got me in a room, and they're like, what are you doing? Are you trying to get us killed? I'm like, but it's the truth. And they're like, yeah, so what? Like, you're a smart guy. What are you doing? And I always say I was naive to think that the truth, being the truth, was the most important thing. And I'm still that naive. In other words, I haven't changed. It's just who I am.
Have any of your ideas or beliefs or thoughts changed over the course of your life? Like something that you really believed firmly in and that now you might think differently or opposite?
I don't know if I think of anything that's completely opposite, but I definitely have changed, over time.
What's evolved? Think of something that's really evolved, let's say.
So my worldview, I think I came from a very small community. The Armenian population of the planet is 6 million people, 7 million people, right? And so I came from that small kind of idea and community and caring for that community. And then seeing over time, over these last 20 number, whatever years, traveling the world, due to touring and seeing that we're all living that same experience, right? That injustice is everywhere. Corruption is everywhere, whether it's hidden between an oligarchic regime or with K Street lobbying firms in Washington, D.C., which is legalized corruption. It's everywhere. So seeing some of the same common denominators around the world, and at the same time, people's goodwill around the world, that I think that's what's changed the most about me, is developing from an ethnocentric artist activist to a universal kind of, probably, I've never even thought about this, but I guess that would be it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I tend to think of people being good and systems being bad.
That's a perfect way of putting it. Yeah.
Did you talked about growing up in this small community? Did all of the band members have a similar experience growing up, would you say?
Similar. I'm sure it's quite a little different, but yeah, I mean, growing up, we all grew up in Los Angeles. John's originally from Toronto, born in Lebanon. Shavo was the only one of us that was born in Armenia, but he was really young. I think he was 3 when his migrated to the US. So we all grew up in the community. We went to different schools, but at one point, 3 out of 4 of us went to the same Armenian private school that's in the film. And they were younger than me, Shavo and Darren. So they remember me. I don't remember them from that time, but obviously later. So there are these interesting pre-System of a Down experiences that we can all relate to, like teachers that 3 out of 4 of us knew and would laugh at, just, mentioning like these interesting common experiences. I think being in the community definitely somehow brought us together as artists who had different musical experiences, but a very common community experience.
It's interesting also that living in Los Angeles and making music, you could conceivably play with anyone, and you all chose to do it within this community. It's just interesting. It's interesting. It feels like it limited your choices in terms of who to play with.
Right. Well, it's funny, the way it happened is I was playing keyboards in this one band that we did like kind of alternative music in Armenian and English. And we were rehearsing in Burbank or North Hollywood somewhere. And I was just their keys guy. And there was another band that was sharing the studio with us. And it was a number of Armenian guys and non-Armenian guys as well. Actually, it was a combination. And they just got Darren to come in as their guitarist. Like they needed a good guitarist, so they got Darren. He was young. He was like 16 or 17. So he started playing with them. And him and I remember, so remember Waco, Texas, when David Koresh had the whole thing, right?
Yes.
How could we forget that, right? So when that happened, I helped write a song that Darren contributed to called Waco Jesus. And it's the first time I ever sang on a recording.
Wow.
So here I am from this band, but I wrote the song for our singer in that band to sing, and he wasn't around. So I ended up singing it myself, and Darren contributed as well and played on it. That's when him and I really met and started kind of playing around with ideas, musical ideas. And we realized a lot of the guys we were jamming with, they were like, into girls and drinking and having fun. And him and I were really like into more philosophical ideas of music and understanding things. And he was serious. We were both, somehow we connected as lifers, as they say, right?
Yeah.
And I remember Darren playing acoustic guitar and us singing our first harmony. And like you said, something was special about that. And I don't even know if that song was ever became a song or whatever. It was just something. And that's how we started. And then Shavo was a friend of Darren's. And Shavo came in to manage us, and he was a guitarist, not a bassist. But Darren was like, this guy really understands my musical mind, and I think he should work with us, kind of thing. And so Shavo became our bassist. And yeah, it was like, it was all natural, although we're all from the same community, but there was something very organic that led each other to each other. And in 2015, when we played Armenia for the first time, man, I'm telling you, I remember right before the show when we did our little band huddle, I was really calm. It felt like the band was created to play that one show. And everything we had experienced in the middle was designed so that we could be there that day. It felt like this culmination of history bringing us to that point. It felt so special.
Incredible. And it's not just your history or the band history, but it's the culture. It's the history of that culture coming together.
Yeah.
And coming back from the other side of the world to fly a flag of art to bring people together. I feel like I'm going to start crying talking about it. It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, man. It was unbelievable and it felt incredible. Honestly, I am really, really grateful for you being on this road with us, this journey. It's meant the world to me. And learning from you and being your friend and so I'm extremely grateful for where we're at.
It is my honor to be in service to you, sir.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon. I'm gonna go wipe the tears out of my eyes. Great seeing you, man.
Great to see you.
Thanks to Serj Tankian for talking music and activism with Rick. To hear a playlist of our favorite songs from Serj and System of a Down, head to brokenrecordpodcast.com, where you can also find a playlist Serj put together of some of his favorite tunes. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/brokenrecordpodcast, where you can find extended cuts of new and old episodes. You can follow us on Twitter at Broken Record. Broken Record is produced with help from Leah Rose, Jason Gambrell, Martin Gonzalez, Eric Sandler, and Jennifer Sanchez, with engineering help from Nick Chafee. Our executive producer is Mia Lobel. Broken Record is a production of Pushkin Industries. And if you like the show, please remember to share, rate, and review us on your podcast app. Our theme music's by Kenny Beats. I'm Justin Richmond. Peace.